With its closest Mideast ally at war, tonight the U.S. military is surging resources to Israel's backyard, moving an aircraft carrier and attack ships to the Persian Gulf, deploying advanced missile defense systems to the region, and putting more U.S. troops on standby who could deploy on short notice. The goal? Containing the Israel-Gaza conflict before it spirals into a regional war that could suck in the U.S.
If any group or any country is looking to widen this conflict and take advantage of this very unfortunate situation that we see, our advice is don't.
Defense Department officials tell NBC News these latest moves are intended to deter Iran from threatening Israel or U.S. troops in the region. Iran, a major backer of both Hamas and Lebanon-based Hezbollah, another of Israel's arch enemies.
We are concerned. We expect that there's a likelihood of escalation.
Tonight, there are growing signs the crisis may already be spreading. The U.S. ordering its non-emergency staff in Iraq to leave after recent drone attacks targeted U.S. forces in both Iraq and Syria. And on Thursday, a U.S. warship in the Red Sea shot down cruise missiles and drones launched by Iran-backed Houthi forces in Yemen. The Pentagon says their target may have been Israel. How high is the risk right now of a regional war?
Well, I think the primary focus is to prevent widening of the war. It's right on the cusp of a disaster. Passions are high.
And Josh is with us now. Josh, President Biden spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. What do we know about that call?
Well, the White House says the two leaders agreed that humanitarian aid should continue flowing into Gaza and that they also consulted on freeing those Hamas hostages, including U.S. citizens. Kate?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.